everyone, and we are back with the Opinionated thoughtbotter. My name is Svenja. I'm a host of the show and developer and team lead at thoughtbot. And with me today is Rakesh. Rakesh, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, thanks, Svenja, for inviting me. I'm Rakesh. I'm a senior developer here at thoughtbot. I specialize in mobile applications development. I predominantly work on React Native. Uh, and yeah, I have a lot of opinions, and it's lovely to be in this meeting, which is called the Opinionated Thoughtbotter. And I'm a
Thank you
thoughtbotter as
so
well.
much. Thank you so much, Rakesh. It's so lovely having you. Let's start right away. What is your opinion?
I think agentic AI is making developers lazy. I'm going to
I love
start with
that.
that opinion. What do you think about that? Like, how do you feel about it?
I love that. I also really love that you ask me the questions. I agree. I do have another question though. Do you use agentic AI yourself?
I do use it a lot.
Does it mean that you became lazy?
That is a very good way to put it. Okay, now I'm in the spot here. But I should say, rather than saying that I've become lazy, I would say that my attention as a developer has transitioned to different parts of the work. Previously, it used to be like 75% of the time coding, 20% of the time reviewing, and then like 5% of the time doing other kinds of work. Now the whole thing has shifted because you no longer have to spend that 75% of the time writing code, because agentic AI is doing it for you in seconds as soon as you prompt it to do. And so you have that 75% of the time to spend on other areas as a developer. I quite like that, but I also miss writing handwritten code as a developer. So I have mixed feelings around that. I would not necessarily say I'm lazy, but I would say it has made my life easy as a developer.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like becoming lazy is not per se a bad thing, right? Because as you said, it lets you focus on other areas of the work, maybe on
Yes.
quality. So do you think
Yes.
like using agentic AI actually gives you the focus time to focus on quality, or is that also a tricky
It
thing?
does. It gives me a lot of time to focus on the quality, but I would not say all developers are using it that way. Agentic AI systems, when you prompt well, or when you write the appropriate skills that are needed for the agentic AI systems to work, it can be very helpful for developers to write really good code, because you can keep iterating. You don't need to accept the first output that comes from the LLM. You can deal with it in different ways. You can write detailed plan on how your code is supposed to be and then make it execute it, or you can keep iterating on the generated code to make it perfect, as if to make it as close to how you would write code as a developer.
In
So
order to do that, but in order to do that, you need to have the knowledge in the first place, right? So
yes,
the
that is
LLM
very important.
won't. What I would you say? It would make you a better developer. Like, do you provide, or do you provide a higher quality when you use agentic AI?
I do think so, yes, because like I said before, previously, if a developer was spending 75% of their time writing code, now with agentic AI systems, like you get that within a few seconds. So like you have all the rest of the time available to make optimization. That refactor that you decided to postpone previously can be done because you have the time to do it now. So that way I feel like agentic AI, when used correctly, can result in better quality of code, and it can produce better code, but you have to iterate a few times, and you need to think carefully how you can achieve that, because it's not directly you prompt it and you get back that higher quality output. Like you need to iterate and get it extracted out of the LLM, I would say.
So you kind of need to teach the LLM to
Yes.
go into the right direction. Is that it?
Yes, you have to steer the LLM a lot in the right direction. A lot of this can be done in the planning phase. You can plan really good before before writing even one line of code or before generating even one line of code. And there are many ways to planning, and I'm experimenting a lot around planning nowadays, and I really like some of the skills that the community is coming up. I'm using them a lot, and this whole thing is like very new. All of us are learning. The whole community is learning how to steer the LLM in the right way to generate that high quality code. But it is possible, and I feel like we will get there eventually.
So in which way does AI then makes developer lazy?
Yes, I will give a few examples that happened in a project that I'm working on. One such example is like very recently, the client that I'm working started adding Claude plans for all the developers. Previously, we were all relying on Copilot, so we now transitioned to Claude. We get like pretty generous usage. So the developers were all like naturally really excited to try out everything that Claude Code has to offer. So this one particular developer added all sorts of skills. Like there was this large pull request of 2,000 to 3,000 lines, and
Oh my
it's not
God.
code. You it you can even review 2,000 lines of code, but imagine it's a markdown file. It's like say 20 to 30 different markdown files, each of them 100 200 lines. They are nothing but skills that were copied from somewhere or added from somewhere. And this particular developer did not even review some of the skills. So you can also do bad things with AI. But by bad things, you can add things that are not needed on the project, or you can easily add things without review. Like I feel like even with agentic AI systems, as a developer, we should review each line of code that gets added. You should not just trust the machine and say that, okay, uh, for 10 different tasks, it has generated really great code. It's going to generate a great code again for the 11th task. So I'm just going to trust and commit the code. That's really poor from the part of any developer who does something like that. So I feel like this particular PR added like 10 different skills, and the developer had not used any of those skills, so we don't even know if that's needed. And some of the skills were like not relevant for a mobile app at all. Like we are working on a React Native project, but this particular skill had a lot of mentions about do not use set inner HTML, do not use DOM based stuff. Those things don't matter for a mobile project. And in another skill, like there were a couple of readmes. One of the readme was in Turkish language. None of us know Turkish. None of us in the project or the team know Turkish. Why was the Turkish language readme in that PR? It felt like they just ran a few commands. It generated like 40, 50 files of skills. They just committed and pushed. And I as a human have to review this code. It's really tough. Like if a human wrote the code, I'm okay to review that code as a human. But if a machine generated that code, I don't see. So my first question I asked was like, which parts of all these skills do you actually want me to review?
Good question.
And then I
Yes.
proceeded from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think like there are some skills, and I'm not talking about Claude skills. I do think like about human skills will become more and more important, like identifying code smells much faster when reviewing pull requests, or
Yes.
like pairing as well. You mentioned like it's good, or it's needed actually, to iterate over everything the LLM produces and gives you. Now, I read a little bit. Again, I myself, I usually don't use any AI, as you know, but no end. I read that like the costs are getting higher and higher and higher. Now, I don't talk about environmental costs, which are high already, but you have to pay per request, or how do you pay for the usage of AI?
So yes, this is probably another opinion I have. The days of cheap AI is getting over. It's almost already over since June, I would say. All these big companies, OpenAI, Copilot, that's Microsoft's, but that also under the hood uses Azure for processing things, and Cursor, Claude. They were all subsidizing developers a lot all these years, like for the last 1 or 2 years. Uh, if you have checked the costs of our usage, like a $20 plan of Claude, if you use it to the fullest, if a developer uses it to the fullest, it's going to cost at least $1,000 in terms of the inference costs for the provider. And if you're on the $100 plan, you can it can cost as much as $4,000 to $5,000 to the company in terms of the inference costs. So, like, we were essentially being
Per
subsidized
year,
all this while.
per
No, per
year,
month, per month.
per month.
Yes, your $1,000, sorry, your $100 Cloud Code Max plan or whatever it is called. It costs at least $3,000 to $4,000. It costs Anthropic that much if you use it to the fullest. So they basically trust that you're not going to use it to the fullest, and they were kind of subsidizing you. But then you started getting all these tools that were abusing that privilege, or that were abusing that subsidy that was provided. You may have heard of this claw-based tools. If you were reading online, have you heard of OpenClaw?
No, tell me.
That's good. It's good that you have not heard about it. It was an
Okay.
unnecessary tool that became really popular. Like if I check the number of stars of OpenClaw, you will be surprised. It's at 379K stars, 379,000 stars. It's
Okay.
I don't know if it's how real the stars are, but it became really popular sometime during December. And all the Claude Max users, like those who were in the $100, $200 plans, they started abusing these systems to make these agents like do a lot more than what it's supposed to do. So these agents were running in loop all the time. Like you were imagine using AI when you ask a question, and imagine it being running round the clock processing things like as someone conscious of the impact on environment, these tools are really bad. And also it was making companies like Anthropic really I would say it was making them poor because they were subsidizing the costs and users started abusing the systems. But now they have realized this is no longer sustainable. I was using Copilot for a long time, and Copilot also had a lot of subsidies built in. Like for $10, you had like 300 requests per month. That was more than enough for me to use these agentic AI systems until May. But now they have moved to transition. They have transitioned to this usage-based system, and they even showed each developer. I have this screenshot where a particular developer was billed $28 for a particular month. This was in April 2026, and if that particular user transitioned to today's usage-based system, their bill would be $746. They
Wow.
used to pay only $28, and they started showing these kind of pages on your GitHub to make you understand what you might be paying if you continue to use AI the same way starting from June. So from this month onwards, users have started exploring alternatives, or they have moved away from Copilot and any other providers that have this usage-based pricing.
I have a question about that because to me it seems like a really kind of flexible, not really well forecasting payment system when you use AI. Wouldn't it be better if you invest in really good developers because you know exactly what you're going to pay them according to their salary and what it costs to your company? Whereas when you hire good developers and then you also just like give everyone or want every developer to use agentic AI, this would double, or well, maybe not completely double, but it would increase the money you have to spend on each developer like a lot. And you will never be sure how much you're actually going to pay. Wouldn't it be
Yes.
better to just like invest in developers?
Can I respond to that question with a question?
Of course.
Do you think developers at thoughtbot are good developers
Yes, I
or
think we are
not?
perfect developers. And I do
We are
think we are
great
really good
developers, right?
developers without AI. Yeah. So I do think we have good and really, really well, like, how do you say, not develop, I don't want to say developed developers, but really well defined developers, designers, product managers at thoughtbot. We don't
Yes.
rely on AI, but we know how to use it AI. I do think that's a difference that many companies don't have.
Yes. And so that is where like we are good developers. We have honed our skills for quite a long time to getting to where we are now. But even a lot of our developers are using the $100 or $200 cloud plans. Did you know that? It's
No,
not like
because I don't have,
you.
I
Yes.
never, seriously, I never opened Claude in my life. Of course, I do see the conversations we have on Slack and wherever, but I'm not that involved in it. I do like to have these kind of conversations that we currently have, but
I think
I don't know.
from what I see, it's not just like the bad developers are using AI or something like that. Even the good developers, like all developers, are using agentic AI systems now. I think it's here to stay, but the costs are something we should think about because it's not going to stay cheap. Like uh, imagine a developer is being paid a particular salary, and if your AI systems are going to cost as much as your salary, does it even make sense? Like you are being paid to do a certain job, and you are in turn paying a lot of money equal to what you're being paid to get the work done. It's not a sustainable thing. It's not going to be sustainable. We should, but I feel like all developers are kind of hooked into it now. It is helping us get better at our jobs. Sometimes it generates code that's even better than what I would normally write. I have to admit it. It happens at times. At times, it doesn't generate the code I would expect it to generate, and I steer it. But most times, it comes up with a much better approach and properly refactored code, etc. That I would take like a long time to write. So I feel like these systems are here to stay, and it's not like only bad developers use AI or something. All developers use it now, but we have to be aware of the costs, and we should be aware the costs are not going to stay the same. It may start increasing even more in the future. So we need to start thinking of alternatives. Is what I feel.
Yeah, I agree. And as I said, like we do need to. I mean, it's kind of a buzzword, like product. You need to increase productivity, and I do think in a way that we can actually do it is to learn how to reduce the costs and reduce maybe the things you use LLM for. I know that you also have an opinion, or actually that you know about alternatives to reduce costs for agentic AI. What are these? What are some? My alternative would be to not use it, or well, to just like reduce the usage of it and invest more in collaboration skills with your fellow colleagues. Because I do think, like, of course, like two brains will be more productive than one brain, because sometimes you drift away, which is absolutely normal and very human.
I really like that suggestion you made. I feel like pair programming is slowly reducing and even disappearing, I would say. All of us are talking to these machines and using them as the pairing buddy. Uh,
No, I'm forcing you. I
Not you.
seriously, whenever I'm on a project, like on any project, I ask for pairing sessions. I am the one who still continues to ask questions to people I'm in a meeting with. And yes, it's yeah, I like to nudge people.
I think more we should do this. So, I mean, there should be a framework. Like let's say there is a particular task that really needs collaboration from another developer, and it's like things like planning, and there can always be tasks that are outside the scope of writing code, for which pair programming and speaking to another person is useful in those for those tasks. I still do that. I even pair program, but we use the agentic systems. It's like two of us talk with each other. Uh, we pair in writing the prompts that get fed to these AI systems. That is how the pairing sessions have become nowadays. And then
So do you
we
use,
together
sorry,
review the output. Yeah.
do you use then two plans? Like your
No,
$100 plan and
we
the
do
other
it on
one?
one person's machine, and
Okay.
I talk to that other developer, or if I am sharing my machine, the other person talks to me. It only happens in one machine, but we are writing English language uh, prompts now instead of pairing on code. That, uh, that is, and there's so much to learn from that as well. There's always this other developer who writes better prompts. You can learn from it, and if you are good at writing prompts, the other developer can learn from it. But instead of pairing on actual code, you are actually pairing on learning to write better English language sentences.
What I do is I Google, because yes, some of my pairing buddies they use an AI as well, and while they write the prompt, I use Google or DuckDuckGo to find an answer, and I'm always happy when I find the answer first, the correct answer, because very often the correct answer is in the documentation. And to read documentation, I seriously don't need AI.
Yes, yes, you
But I
don't
want
need.
to come no, but I want to come back to how do we reduce the costs? What do we
Yes.
have in order to
So these providers, they are corporate companies that want to make a lot of money all the time. So they are going to continuously increase the costs, because we developers are now hooked into these systems, and we really like using them. So they are only going to increase the cost. But there are alternatives. I like the alternatives that you said. Pair with another developer, or write code like how a developer always used to write before these AI systems, agentic AI systems existed. But I have another alternative, which is local language models. Like you have open source large language models that are capable to serve as agentic systems that will be running only on your machine. These LLMs were not as good like a year or two years back, but in 2026 they have gotten much better. I would still say that they are not as good as the cloud-based models, because the cloud-based models operate on large hardware, and they are really large in terms of size. The training data, the model size, everything is much larger. But you can always experiment on local models. I have had like good success. I have experimented on different editors. There is an editor called Pi. I don't know if you have heard of it. Pi is like really good for local language model based agentic coding, because it has so little context in it as an system compared to say Cloud Code or Copilot or Cursor. You get much faster response because these large language models are running on your machine. They are often slower. So if you use these different coding harnesses, that is the term they use for these systems. You get much faster output, and they are good for small tasks. So as a developer, what you can do is use the large language models from the cloud providers like Anthropic or OpenAI. Use them for really tough tasks or tasks that need a lot of planning. But switch to your local models for execution and trivial code changes, or even don't use them at all. Like you said, if something is as simple as changing the handwritten code, like do it like how you always used to do. But you can always do this in phases, like separate it by how tough a particular task is, and think of using the appropriate systems for those tasks. And this way
okay.
you will reduce the costs. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I have a question. Like, what does local LLMs mean? How do you set them up? How do you keep them running? Do you have any resources? We can always share resources in the description. So, yeah.
Yes, there are several ways to do this. We have written a few blog posts about this. Jose wrote a blog post, I wrote a blog post as well. There is a particular tool called Olama that is very famous. Then there is
I heard
LM
about
Studio.
it.
You have heard about it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then there is LM Studio that's very popular in Macs. And there are a lot of open source models. They're not strictly open source, but they call it open weights. It means like once you download it to your machine, these models are like close to 20 to 30 GB in size, and they occupy your RAM. Like the Mac machines that we have are like quite sizable in terms of RAM, so you can afford to have that in your RAM while you continue to work. And once these large language models are loaded into your memory, it's like as good as like you just connect to your local server that's operating in your local machine, and you can connect your VS Code, you can connect your editor, or you can connect even your cloud code. Any editor can be connected to these LLMs, and you can turn off your internet and it will continue to respond to your requests because it's running locally.
That does sound interesting. I now think we should have a session about that, like just like a live stream about how to set this up. I might be interested in it myself.
I can show it as well. And Diego did a live stream not live stream, but a session for thoughtbotters last week where he showed how to use these things. And
nice.
I can do it as well. I have
We will
been
link it.
experimenting on these things for quite some time. I'll do it.
Cool. We will do it. Thank you so much, Rakesh. Time is nearly over. Do you have anything that you want to bring up that we did not discuss? Anything, your final words for this episode?
I think I really enjoyed discussing these things. It feels like a weight is off my chest or something. Like I've been wanting to share these things with someone, and this episode was a really great way to share that.
Thank you so much, Rakesh, for being here. Thank you, everyone out there, for listening. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and see you next time for another episode of the Opinionated Thoughtbotter. Bye-bye.